Hi, this is Rachel from the Dotting Center. In today's process video, I'll share with you my very first painting of the year. This one was unique for me in a couple of ways. First, I'll be using only black and white paint, which is both scary and refreshing. If you're used to using lots of color, I highly recommend it. And second, I'll be scaling up the size of a mandala I already drew last year in my sketchbook with the help of my mandala shape stencils. This isn't a tutorial, it's more of a paint and chat with some insight that I've learned from this project, so I hope you like it. And here we go, I'll just kind of lead you through this latest piece that I did. The first step was I got a 12-inch round canvas, and I used my 12-24 divider stencil to divide up the canvas into sections. That's always the first step. So these are great. Basically, you just find center on your canvas by matching the concentric circles, the divider lines in the stencil, with the outer edge of your canvas. Now, because this is a white background, I'll be using a colored watercolor pencil, which is a temporary pencil, just to get the guidelines down onto the canvas. And I'm using the 12-24 divider because that's what I used in my sketchbook when I first did this design. And that was a 5-inch design. This is going to be a full 12-inch design. So I'll just be duplicating the stencils that I used in my sketchbook on this canvas. So to help me design this mandala, I used two of the shapes from my Mandala Shape Stencils collection. I used the petal shape and I used the OG shape. And this collection has just been a game changer for me. And I know a lot of you have emailed me and messaged me and let me know that this has completely changed your mandala designing world, because not all of us enjoy the initial drawing of the design. So like, I enjoy the designing part, but I don't like sketching freehand things that are symmetrical. I would much rather have those shapes at the ready and perfectly symmetrical, so that then I can skip ahead to the good part, the painty bits, where I can design with paint, because that is my joy. That's where I find my flow. Not so much with the drawing part, but everybody's different. I just thought I'd put that out there, and I've heard that from you, that you all really enjoy that aspect of it. So the process for using these is pretty simple. So what you do is you pick a shape that you like, and then you can play with it on different parts of your grid. And you can see directly through the stencil onto your canvas so that you can see what it's going to look like before you actually trace it. You basically need 3 points where you can line up the shape. So you line up the center divider line in that little bridge area on the stencil, and then the 2 end points of your line will basically touch another line on your divider grid. So as the design unfolds, it just kind of, you build it just like any other mandala from the center out, or even from the outside in. It really doesn't matter. But once you have your final outline, you can then go in and kind of tweak it as you see fit. So keep in mind, you're using a watercolor pencil on this sketch, so you can easily just move lines or take away shapes if you don't like them and redesign, take out areas. You just need a damp cotton swab and it will remove the lines for you. My job at this point is to go in and fill in these shapes in a way that is going to look good, high contrast. So I'm just using black and white, which is scary. If you've ever painted in just black and white, it's like walking a high wire, because there is no room for You can't really fudge like you can with color. When you're working with color, you can do things that kind of blend in an interesting way and kind of cover up mistakes a lot easier. But when you're dealing with something that's high contrast, like black and white, when things aren't symmetrical or if a line is wobbly, it really shows up. However, I will say that having worked in black and white pen and ink on paper, canvas is a lot more forgiving because you have basically like whiteout. Using white, anything, if you have a mistake show up on your black lines, you can just go over it with white. Where with paper, you got nothing you can't. There's no whiteout on paper that looks right. So much respect to the ink and paper artists out there who draw out their work. That is there's no real way that I know of to correct mistakes in an easy way. So here you see I'm going over all those lines. I'm using brushes, I'm using stylus tools. I really kind of use just the best tool for the job with this work. So one thing some of you, if you're not familiar with this type of work, you might be looking at those blue lines that I traced from the watercolor pencil and be like, ugh, do you have to go over all of those lines so that they don't show up? And the answer is no. Those are just to provide symmetry lines so that when I'm placing any paint onto the design, they basically just tell me where the halfway point is. Like on this petal, I know exactly where the halfway point is. It gives me concentric circles so that I can make sure that my lines are exactly a circle, because that's almost impossible to do just freehand. And at the end of the painting process, once all the paint is dry, this watercolor pencil will simply wipe up off of the canvas with a damp cloth. So this is purely temporary guidelines, just meant to help keep your paint in line until the end of the painting process, when you can just get rid of them completely. So here I'm using a Jerry Q liner brush. This is one of the finer brushes in the set. These are fantastic as far as I know. I'm not really great at using liner brushes, but these are ones that other artists use. I love 1000's channel. I don't know if any of you watch his channel, but it's one of my favorite YouTube channels ever. And he does just amazing graphic work. And he loves these brushes. And if it's good enough for him, I was like, heck yes, I'll try it. And so I went and bought this set, and I could not be more pleased. It really does matter about the brush when it comes to lines, and I've found that these brushes help me out quite a bit. Hey, so can you do me a favor? Can you like this video? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Boy, that would really help a girl out. I took a gap year off, and man, the algorithm is beating me up, y'all. So I'm starting from scratch, and if you could just show my channel a little bit of love, that would mean a lot. So for these shapes, I didn't have anything sketched out. This is just adding these little arcs in the each side of that OG shape and making little like half circles. At this point, not really thinking about where that's going to go in at the end of the design, just kind of fitting things into that shape. Really, these shapes are just prompts. They are meant to give you a direction, but not any specific direction. So you can play in these shapes and kind of make your own adventure. It's like a choose your own adventure art journey. So at the beginning of this video, if you remember, I was babbling on about something about how I don't enjoy the pencil sketch part of the process. Well, this is the part that I really enjoy. One of the things about knowing your own process is finding where you really enjoy it so that you can just spend time there. Get straight to the part that you find your most flow and your most joy, and really like find it delicious, right? I can't even think of a different way of saying it, but I know that I don't like the drawing part in the beginning. I like designing, but I don't like trying to get one side of a shape exactly like the other side and like drawing all the different circles and doing all the stuff like that. This is where I find my joy. Oh, I love designing with shapes and dotting shapes. So like everything that you'll see in this design is a very traditional, simple dotting shapes. So here we're just going to use dots. I'm going to use my largest stylus tool and make a simple radiating line going from the largest size down to the smallest size dot. You can get that done easily with a stylus tool. You just dip the tip of your tool in paint, and then each dot that comes off of the tip of that tool without reloading gets smaller. So here in this section, what I'm going to do is make a very like pop art looking halftone of white on black, and it's going to be super graphic, and the dots get smaller and farther apart the smaller that they get. And this is going to kind of give a shading look from far away. It's a really interesting technique. So here we are, we're going back in with that liner brush. And the trick with these that I've found is to really place pressure on the bristles so that the brush basically does all the work for you. What will mess you up with making lines quicker than anything is if you use the tip of the brush and do kind of like those little tiny painterly strokes. That will give you a wobbly line every time. But if you take the brush, press it down, and use the length of those bristles to give you a line, it'll be a lot easier for you. Okay, so now we're going to come in and outline each one of these petals and really kind of take your time. There's no dotting tool that's going to be able to do this for you. When you need to take a line, put a curve on it, and really cover some ground, so go a good distance pulling that paint, you need a liner brush. So this technique is a little bit different than if you are doing a straight circle line. This one kind of has an S curve to it, just a very slight change in direction. So you're not going to press the bristles down all the way like you would if it was a straight line. So you're going to use probably the top third of the bristles. You can push it down as much as you want right around this area, but then you just kind of like curve it around. Notice how I'm using my pinky as a way to ground my hand onto the canvas so that it doesn't move around. Kind of like a tripod for your camera. It just kind of stabilizes your hand so that you can use the other 4 fingers on your hand as a guide for your brush. It really, really works. And this is very satisfying. These big, long lines like this, so much fun to do. Very meditative. This whole process. This one, especially because it was black and white, it felt different. I loved it. So, here is a quick question for all of you out there. Uh, have you all worked on your 2024 art goals yet? Do you all do this? Do you have different things that you want to try throughout the year that maybe you haven't done before or that you'd like to get better at? What? I know there's like New Year's resolutions and there's like fitness goals and like personal goals, financial goals, whatever. But art goals specifically are very interesting to me right now. So I'm going through that process. This actually was one of the things I wanted to try this year was working in black and white and also working from my sketchbook. This counts as a sketchbook idea because this started as a pen and ink drawing in one of my sketchbooks and I decided to make it into a painting. So this kind of ticks a couple of boxes for me. It is, oh, and also using brushes. I want to use brushes. I want to keep using black and white, work bigger, and work a lot in my sketchbook. That's my number one thing this year. So have any of you like done this? And if you haven't, maybe you should kind of reevaluate. It's really kind of fun to challenge yourself in new ways. And if you have any art goals, please share them below. We all want to know, what are you working on this year? What's your thing? Okay, so I got to this section and I thought, hey, let's just keep going with these brush strokes because I'm super feeling the brush stroke stuff right now. And so I went in and I was like, yeah, this is pretty great, these big long black brush strokes. But then I took a look at it and it was a little too stripey. It kind of screams for attention. And at that point I realized, no, this can't happen. So I wiped the paint off and I painted over it with white and just decided to leave that until I had a better idea. So after that was painted over, I lived with it for a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll take this painting as it is, unfinished, and I will, like if I'm working out, I'll take it and throw it in the gym on the wall, just look at it. I'll hide it from myself somewhere in the house, and just glance at it as I'm walking by and be like, well, maybe that should be like this. I kind of live with it for a while and make decisions like that. And at this point, I've figured that behind those white petals needed to be a solid bit of black so that the white petals kind of popped up a little bit, came forward. So you can do this when you're looking at your art. So lighter colors or brighter colors will tend to move forward in the design, where darker colors or if you're using blues tend to recede into the design, where reds will pop up. In this case, we're just using black and white. So the white is going to pop up, the black is going to move backward, and you can kind of think of that as you're designing. And that's one of the things that I've found when using only black and white is that you have these tricks that you can use. You can use size, you can use spacing, and you can use, receding and things popping forward, especially in this kind of pop art graphic style. There's only a few tricks that you have, but you can really kind of use them to your advantage when you have black and white only. Oh, so here you get a peek at my favorite sweater. Continuity error, right? Oh, golly, so embarrassing. Okay, so now we're edging towards the end of this painting, and what I'm finding is areas where I can join the different sections together to kind of overlap and bring together the different areas. So I've found that this is a good time to allow it to dry completely overnight. And here is how you remove those watercolor pencil marks. You just get preferably a lint-free cloth, and just use water, go over all of those pencil lines, and they just disappear. I have found that some pencil colors will stain, so you might want to test this out on your surface with different colors and see which ones remove better. These blue ones work really well. And you can see you can just like wipe them off. And you want to make sure that you get all of the blue guidelines off of your painting before you do your final tweaks and, of course, your final varnish coat. Just make sure that it's 100% clear of lines before you finish it. So here's one of those things that I saw when I hid this on the wall somewhere in my house. I thought that it would be cool to join the different sections together, so overlap shapes, so that it added a little bit of complexity to the design. I think it really added a lot, and this is something, for instance, that you can do with paint that you can't do with pen and ink. So there it is. Our journey is complete. This is the first painting of the year, and I am so excited to share more with you this year. As always, you can meet me over at thedottingcenter.com for any of your dot art supply needs. I hope you have just the best day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.